Okay, hello everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Blue Sky once again. So I will just comment. So we usually use the ceremonies to open up to everyone, so we can have a ground understanding of how we'll be running our daily lives during the internship, right? So please, you're going to be getting a lot of information in such a short time. Just be open-minded. If you have questions, note them down. Even if you're not so clear afterwards, you can always rewatch the videos, right? I can even share a previous video for maybe more clarity if you see it in two angles, right? So I'll just try and run as fast as I can because we actually have a lot to do today. Even the role play is, supposed to come in at 9, but I just had to move it to 9:15 so that we can just get the best out of the session. So we'll go gradually. Ground rules, please just stay muted. That's my only important ground rule. Stay muted so that we don't distract ourselves. I'm also praying for myself not to get distracted too. So let's just go. Ease off your mind. A lot of things, most of us know one or two things already. Just drop the things you know, just open your heart and get to understand. I always like people to paint the picture in their mind so they'll have an understanding of what is going on tonight, right? So by the time you transition into your teams, you'll be able to just carry it out one after the other. So let's go gradually. Thank you, everyone. Once again, my name is Olawumi. I'll be taking us Scrum ceremonies today, right? So, just a quick cap of the table of content. I'll just introduce you briefly to what PM is, what the framework of Agile is, what Scrum is, what empiricism is. Now, if you notice, the first four titles in the table of content is not really our focus for today. But because this is your first main lecture, it's always good to just open your mind a bit towards it, right? So I will be breezing through that, possibly even read just to get it over with, right? And then I will now jump into the ceremonies proper, right? So that we can understand what the ceremonies are about, which should be our take home for today. All the ceremonies. And I expect that by the end, I'm going to ask different people what those ceremonies are, and I hope they get it right, yeah? So let's go. So, what is project management? So Agile project management. So I'll just go to Agile first. Agile is an iterative approach of delivering projects. So there's a reason we always say Agile is iterative. Any definition of Agile that you see will have iterative, will have incremental in it. So when we say Agile is an iterative approach, so what do we mean by iterative? That word iteration. One of the things I like Agile and Scrum about is that they always tend to like give us exactly the English meaning of what they are saying. So when we say iteration, iteration is saying repetition. It's like repeating a process over and over again, right? So when we so don't fret. I don't like when people get thrown off when they just hear some words, right? So this is iterative approach of delivering projects. So doing projects in bits. I don't know if some of you have heard of the traditional way of project management, when you just sit down, plan and plan and plan, then you start executing, before. But this in Agile, we do it bit by bit. So that's the meaning of the iteration. Some people interchangeably use iteration and sprint. Yes, it could be used interchangeably, but they also kind of still have different meanings, but they perceived to be the same thing, right? So iteration is bit by bit. Sprint is also bit by bit, but specifically, say for example, 2 weeks. So we have sprints where we say 2 week sprints, 3 week sprints, 1 week sprint. We'll get there gradually, but I'm just trying to open our mind just to the background. The real target I told you earlier is the Scrum ceremonies. So let's go gradually. So it's iterative approach of doing things, then it helps team deliver value to their customers bit by bit, but faster. Why is it faster? Those are the questions that should be running into our minds now. So we're saying something, someone is doing something bit by bit, but how is it faster? So, like the example I gave before, that in the regular way of doing things, that's the traditional way, waterfall method of doing things. Let me just step back, 2 steps back, so we can understand where I'm coming from. So, project management is the big umbrella, right? So there are two major approaches. I always say there are several approaches, but the two main approaches that we all work towards as organization for projects and all is the traditional or waterfall and the agile process, right? So the traditional or waterfall is like you do all your planning, you do all the execution, you test it, and that's it. Now, in the agile way, you plan just a little bit so that you can get the idea of what the customer wants. You start doing it. When you do little, you call the customer, yeah, come and see what I've done so far. You do again, the customer will say, no, remove this, add this. Come and see what I've done so far. Is this useful? Is this of value? Okay, yeah, I like this one. Okay, like that. That's just what the difference is. So in Agile, they are testing in it. They are they are developing testing, but in the waterfall part of things, that's the traditional way. They just do everything at once. Customer is only at the start and at the end. So you can imagine if I want to do a website for a customer and the customer told me this is the website I want to, then I go plan. I've asked him all the right questions. Don't get me wrong. I always like people to understand that traditional or waterfall is not a bad idea, right? But I've asked the customer, I asked him a lot of questions, I've done a lot of research, gotten all the requirements, then we go back as a team, we execute everything. And then when we are done, time has gone, we've spent a lot of money and everything, right? So it's still okay. He gave us 3 months to do it, so it's fine. So it's still okay. Then we now go back to him and say, this is it. And then the customer sees it and the customer is like, oh no, this is not what I wanted to achieve. Can you? So it would waste time, money, and a lot of things because you're now going to start from scratch to start removing. But in the flip side, if he had used Agile, he has told us what we wanted. We've also had a lot of questions, thrown at him. He has given us all the requirement specification. Then we go back, we do little, we call him, Uncle, come and see. Comes, he looks at it. So the customer looks at, say, oh, okay, this is good, but you know what? I told you I wanted sky blue. But as I'm looking at it, I think royal blue will be better. Can you change it to royal blue? I change it to royal blue. He comes, he sees it, says, yes, thumbs up, this is what I want. So he comes again, we do something, we call him again, come see. So in Agile, we take them through the journey together. So we are going to deliver that thing faster because the customer is in the journey. They will, at the end, the customer will not say, oh, this is not what I asked for because he was in the journey with you. So that's just the idea. Like I said, I'm only trying to just open our mind to get to understand what this agile that we're always talking about and waterfall is, right? So we're going to be rolling quickly from here on. So there's constant collaboration with stakeholder and continuous improvement at every phase. You see where this continuous improvement comes in when we're talking of adaptability and co. Okay, and we move. So I always like to kind of explain this picture so that we just understand a bit. So a customer told us that he wants this car. This is what he told us that he wants. But every sprint, we try to give him something of value. So you need to look at this emoji to understand what the something of value is, right? So you see this, the customer told us he wants a car. So we did a tire for him and we gave the customer the tire. See, the customer is frowning. What will he use tire for? Does he want to ride tire? Is he a small child that will be rolling tires on the streets? We called the customer again in stage 2 and told him we've done 2 tires this time around and a base. He's looking at us that what will he do with this base? On the third one, we built the car, but probably we've not put the engine, we've not put the steering. How does he want to move this car? But in the fourth one, we actually built the car, and that's okay for him. You see that he smiled, right? It's okay, right? But look at this other step for this same customer. So he says he wants a car. So we gave him a scooter. You see, he's still boning, but it's like, okay, at least this scooter can move me from one point to another. And then we decided to do, sorry, this was a skateboard. We decided to do a scooter for him. He was like, okay, that's all right. You see, it's not like he's happy, but at least he can move him from one place to the other. Then we make a bicycle for him. Oh, this time around, I can sit down and move. Okay, great. Then this time, oh, I don't even need to paddle. I just need to move. You see that he's already smiling, though he has not gotten there yet, right? So you see this smile of the power bike and the smile of this one. You see it's the same. But guess what? We've still not achieved the car here with just this kind of smile. We want our customer to be ecstatic. So by the time we now make the car, you might not understand this perception fully, but with time you get to understand what we mean. What we're just saying is after every iteration, right? After every sprint, you get to understand sprint better. We must have something of value. That's all this talk I've been saying since. We must have something of value, and we're moving on. Okay, so we have many frameworks in Agile. So the most popular ones, I'll just give us the most popular ones. Scrum, which is what we do in Blue Sky. Safe is like skilled Agile, right? That's what safe is. And then XP, extreme programming, Kanban, Lean. Manufacturers use this a lot. A lot of companies that they do like continuous work that is not like they need to end the work or something. They just delve into the work. What we just measure here will be probably their cycle time, but that's what Kanban is about. So you get to see most of these. Some organization they combine a lot. So I use my organization, for example, we use Scrum, we use Kanban, so which is Kanban, and of course we use Safe because most of our projects are very, very complex. Not most of, all our projects are complex. So that's why we use Safe. Okay, so they are just examples. If you want to know more about them, you can always read up and all that. But our focus is Agile and the Scrum in Blue Sky. Yeah. Okay, so what is Scrum? So Scrum is a framework of, you see, this definition captures everything about Scrum. Everything, even on the Scrum guide and everything. So it says it's a framework of rules, roles, events, and artifacts used to implement agile projects. So it's just saying there are rules in Scrum that we must follow. There are roles, which is what you guys already know, BA, QA, DA, like that. There are rules, but the major one, according to the Scrum guide, is PO, SM Scrum Master, PO is product owner, SM Scrum Master, and then developers, which is the people really doing that actual work of developing something, right? So developers. So even the testers in it and all that is all development work. So that's the main three roles, so to say. So events are what we are learning today. So that's ceremonies I'm talking about. Another word for ceremony is event. So events, we will get to know it. I will not say them now. And then artifacts. Artifacts are like key information that the Scrum team they need during the development phase of that their project or their product. So when you're developing a product, all the key materials you use, the information you need to carry that on is what we call artifacts. So there are three major artifacts, right? Now, there are gazillion artifacts, let me rephrase. But the three major ones I'd just like to open our mind to, so that just to set our pace, to open our mind to what we are going to do tonight. So the three major ones are product backlog, sprint backlog, and increments. Now let's go together. Please note what I'm saying now. Product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment. So if you remember, I told you anytime we're defining Scrum, we talk about iterative, we talk about incremental. So I'll start from the rear. Increment is that thing of value that you do at the end of the day. So remember that scooter, that was something of value for the first sprint, something of value for the second sprint, third sprint, like that. So those things of value is what we call increments. So when you now keep adding a previous thing to another thing, to another thing, so something of value, I'm holding something of value. In the next sprint, I do another thing of value, I add them together. That's an increment. On the third sprint, I do something of value, I add it together. That's an increment. So things that continuously get better, things continuously improve and get better. So that is what increment is, right? So that's increment. So let's put that aside. So what we've achieved at the end of that sprint, that's what increment is. So I'll now go back to the beginning, which is product backlog. So I like to define it this way. I'll give you the official definition or something, but the definition is just open your mind to it as all the things we think we want to do. It's always easy to understand that way. So if, for example, a customer says they want to build a website, what are the things we want to do for that website? Those questions I told you will be asking the customer, what's the website for? Okay, what do you hope to achieve? Is there this specific target market you're looking at? Okay, what's going to be the background like? What's the color like? Do you have a terms and condition policy you want to put on it? Do you have any idea of what you want us to put in the header? Is there anything specific? Do you already have a company logo? Do we have to create a logo for you? All the questions we just want to ask the customers and all the things we think we want to do on that particular website is called product backlog item. So it's like out of all the artifacts, is the one that I'll call that is an artifact that is alive because you keep adding things to it, so it's a live artifact. So you keep updating it from time to time. So it's like the list of all the requirements. So now this is like the professional definition of saying the list of all the requirements, or maybe you want to enhance something or you want to work on something. So that list of all the requirements that needs to be developed to become a product is what the product backlog is. And then the sprint backlog is now You see that product backlog that we have said, we now want to take some and work on it. So those some that we want to work on, I've told you that we've spoken about the header, we've spoken about the color, the footer, the this, all the questions we want to ask the customer. So let's say all the questions are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. That's what we want to do. So for sprint backlog, we can't do everything at once. You remember that we do things iteratively, gradually. We do things incrementally. So we do them incrementally, bit by bit. That's the incremental part of things. The iterative part of things is repeating that process, improving on it continuously, right? So you see those A, B, C, D, E, F are all the product backlog items. The sprint backlog is now when we have sat down, refined the story, and we're ready to go. We now say, okay, you know what? Let's do A, B, and F. That's what we want to do this time around. So that A, B, and F now automatically becomes a sprint backlog. The reason I'm giving us this understanding is so that we can have an idea what the whole act of saying we are saying Scrum is about, doing things bit by bit, and then hoping to achieve something incremental at the end of the day. So that's that part. So now I will be moving on. So my first assignment to everyone, please go to the internet and type Scrum Guide 2020. Just note that down. You can do that after the call or even at your leisure tomorrow. It's about 16 pages, if I'm not mistaken. Please read everything cover to cover. That alone gives you a good idea of what Scrum is about. So it wasn't written by some Scrum masters or some expert, it was written by developers. There were about 17 of them that came together to write all the principles of Agile and Co. But specifically, the two main guys is Ken and Jeff that wrote this Scrum guide to guide all the development process. So this is your first assignment. I'm going to ask you guys at random during the course of the week or next week, those that have read it. I trust you guys to give us the good answers. So another thing is the pillars of Scrum. So when we talk of pillars of Scrum, we're just trying to say, okay, so in Scrum, what are the things that are fact? What are the things that are based on your experience? So that's what we call empiricism, anyways. So for empiricism, just put these three. It comes in interview question. It comes anytime. It's not compulsory. These days they will not ask you what is this, what is that, right? But they can say something that might just relate to this. Sometimes for some people, when they actually ask them what are the three empirical, and people really goofed or they remember two and don't remember the last one. It's just very funny. Something that should be at the back of our hand, right? So if you don't even know anything today, please keep this in your head because the transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So just as the word is, transparency is just like all the aspect of the process that must be visible. So what are those aspects of the project that must be visible? Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
Yes.
And my screen is
Yeah.
off. Okay.
Thank
Okay, so empiricism, like I said, is like all the facts, all the realities that happens during the course of development, right? So all the things that are based on experience. So that's what we refer to as empiricism. And you can just use initials. Me, I always use TIA, but some people say AIT, anything, just to keep it in your head. So you don't just rubbish yourself for little things during interviews, right? Or they ask a question that when somebody asks a question and you say, oh, just like transparency, you can always use it as example. It always comes up. And it should be something that should even be at the back of our hand. So when we talk about transparency is, like I said, all the things that are visible to everyone. So to everybody that has interest in that project, what are the things that are visible? So say, for example, we like to use this example of saying, for example, you see our Azure DevOps board, our Jira board, we put in that this is what we want to do, this is what we hope to achieve, then we keep moving it across the board. Don't worry, by the time you start using Azure, this will come to you fully. So we are moving it across the board. And guess what? If a stakeholder wants to see something, but just wants to have an idea of what the team is doing, they always have that they always have user access just to see what we're doing, right? So they can just log in and see, oh, okay, this team is working on okay, it's in this stage, it's on this level. So transparency is just anything you do when it comes to Scrum. Please be very truthful to your team, be very clear. So transparency is putting the right things on the board. Don't say you've done something when you've not done something. It's like you put that I've done A, and whereas you've not done it and you've put it in done, it doesn't work. you have to be very clear. So it's just giving visibility to all the processes that we want to do. That's what transparency is. And like I always say, I like to remind people when it comes to Scrum, you see all these words, they also mean their English word. So you to think about it when someone says be transparent about something, be truthful, be clear, show us everything. Oh, yes, I said yesterday that I wanted to do something, and then I come to the stand up today and I say, oh, sorry, I've not done it because of this. So today I hope to do da, 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 da. That's fine. That's transparency. So even during your stand up, you can be very transparent with your team and tell them, the truth of the statuses of what you're working on. Now, inspection is just like the word. When they say you want to inspect something, timely checks of progress. So it's more like something that has to be done very frequently. So we also use our review to do it. I will wish to probably come back to empiricism after this Scrum event so that you understand where all these things come in. So we use that daily stand up to do this inspection check. And then adaptation is, you remember I gave you an example of I was doing something for the customer. He told us he wanted sky blue, and we used sky blue. But when he saw the first, demo of the website that, oh, this is the draft, of the website, the customer was like, oopsie, I don't like this color. Can you tweak it to be royal blue? Or can you make it lighter shade of this? Or can you make it, a gradient, this part darker, this part lighter? The customer is in the process. So because we use light blue and the customer came back to us to change it to a gradient or a royal blue, we go back and adapt to that change. So that's what adaptation is. So immediately something comes up, we go back and adjust that process. You don't need to wait. That's why I said Scrum is very beautiful. You don't need to wait and say, or you be grumpy. You can imagine even have done a lot of things and customer says, no, 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 this is not what I meant. Funny enough, you have all the receipts that, this is the email he said, this is what he said. But sometimes when people see the reality of what they have demanded for, it doesn't really sit well with them, right? So it's okay. You don't need to grumble. I usually just make it as a joke that don't worry, you can grumble at the back, but in front of the customer, just put on that smile. Oh, okay, that's fine. You want us to tweak this, you want us to tweak this, okay, that's fine. But of course, there are lots of things that goes on this, which might not even be your payroll grade, right? So, but your bosses will probably check to be sure that it's not like we are going to need more funds or something. That's when it comes to the scope, the quality, and all that. But let's just leave that aside. Let's just focus on the main thing, which is just adapting to change as it comes. So adaptation, when we find things that are not really acceptable, we quickly apply an adjustment and then we move and correct them, right? That's what it's about. So we will now be transitioning into the ceremonies itself so that we can proceed. Okay, so what are Scrum ceremonies in the first place? So Scrum ceremonies, I told you before that another name for Scrum ceremony is Scrum event. They are just meetings. All the ceremony I've been shouting since is nothing but meetings, right? But in Agile, we don't really like calling it meetings, right? We just say, okay, you call it by the name of that ceremony. Oh, let's have our stand up. Let's have our daily stand up. For you guys that are new to it, we always advise you use the full word. We don't want you to be saying, let's do our DSU or if anybody that uses DSU, I'm going to find you, right? So we're going for daily stand up. Flex with it, don't worry. You know me, I like people to always, So oh, when do we have our daily stand up? What I'm just giving an example. Use the full word. So the ceremony means event. They are just meetings that are organized to ensure the team are in sync. That's the sync there is synchronization with the development of that product or project. So that's what that ceremony is about. That's what Scrum ceremonies are about. They are just meetings for everybody to be on the same page. Oh, okay. So this is done frequently so that we don't miss out on anything, so that we don't make mistakes and go too far and then start coming back. That's why in Scrum, we hardly have to really adjust amount or something because we've not even gone far before making the changes. So it also helps the team get work done in a structured manner. Please underline the word structured. So if we have those events, there's structure already in place, there's an expectation in place, there's collaboration between we and all the team members, and of course, what we are driving at is a good increment, a good result. So when we say increments, so we're saying the result of what we achieved in that time, right? So Scrum ceremonies are also done in the context of a sprint. So I've mentioned sprint earlier, and I told you sprint and iteration, they just sit hand in hand like brothers and sisters. So, like I said before, that iterations is about repeating a process, doing things bit by bit, but repeating a process, right? Sprint in itself is now the full definition of okay. So in Scrum, we use sprint to split our work periods. So the period of time in Scrum is called sprint, right? So the lowest is 1 week sprint, the highest is 4 week sprint. People always tweak some things, but on an average, across all organizations, like on an average, this is me using the word average, 2 week sprint is the most recommended. So most organizations they use 2 week sprint. Now it also depends on your project. That's why I put that clause earlier. Sometimes when you know your project is something that even before you guys even catch the whiff of it, that 2 weeks is completed. So for something like that, you can make it a 3 week sprint. Out of experience, I'll just explain. For example, my own direct team, we don't do a 2 week sprint, we do 3 week sprints. But every other person around us, they do 2 week sprints, right? I only know one or two couple of teams that do 4 week sprint, but usually people just do 2 week sprint, which is the ideal recommendation. But when you start that 2 week sprint and you're not okay with it as a team, it's not organization that will dictate to you. Please note that the team dictates it, right? But the organization might just gear you towards it. So the organization will 2 week sprint. So when the team starts that 2 week sprint, they see that it's not working for them with good justification, they can make an amendment and make it a 3 week sprint. But usually you get a 2 week sprint across board. It's always good to mention that so that we are open-minded. Sorry, I guess I muted myself. All right. So let's keep going. I really hope to finish right within 1 hour. What's the purpose of Scrum ceremonies? They are basically the things I've mentioned earlier. You see, when it comes to Scrum, there's something you'll be hearing a lot: collaboration, self-organization, cross-functionality. Those are the things you'll be hearing when it comes to Scrum. So the purpose of Scrum ceremonies is just to ensure that people are in sync. That's what I explained earlier. People are in sync. It empowers the team to collaborate effectively. It helps them set and measure expectation. So we said we want to do A, B, and F. Can you remember I mentioned that earlier? So what's that expectation that we need to meet at the end of the sprint? So A, B, and F, before we even start the sprint, we must make sure it has met definition of ready, right? When we start the sprint and finish it, before we say we finished it, it must meet definition of done. So that's DOR, DOD. We'll talk about it as we go. So definition of ready, just as the word is, before you start something, is it ready to be worked on? I'm trying to always look for a layman example so that we can understand it. So when we say definition of ready, has it met some certain criteria before we say we want to start that particular, before we say we want to start that particular project or that particular aspect of the work? So I'll use prep major where you did your um, um, registration. So at the time you want to register, let's say you started using prep major properly, and we're building something on it, right? So we want students to be able to download courses. That's what we need to work on now. And for students to be able to download courses, guess what? The tutor should have uploaded a course already. Where do they want to download something from if something has not been uploaded? So we will not start that. We will not start that student download if we are not sure that these people have uploaded. So you need to know those kind of. You have to be sure that all the things. So you want all the data you need to do that particular thing is in place. All the available resources is in place before you go on. So those are the reasons for making sure that things have made definition of ready. So there's something we call invest criteria. I'll show you at the end so that you can look through it, and it's something you should have at the back of your palm too. So you see the meaning of the full acronym of invest, but I will not waste much time on it. And definition of done on the other side. I always like using this example because it's something that happened to me personally. So if I finish cooking and the food is done, our normal Niger slang of say food is done, right? Guess what? I've met definition of done, don't you think? Think about it. The food is done is sourced well, is properly cooked and all that. But guess what? To my husband, that food is not done because it does not make definition of done. For me, it has made definition of done, but for my husband, it has not made definition of done. If I now take that food and serve it in a plate, put it on the dining table, put a cutlery by it, and I say, honey, the food is ready. Now it has made definition of done for my husband. So how do we agree on definition of done? Because really think about it, that food is done. That's why it was, on the pot. I've turned off the gas, so the food is done. But to the partner, he doesn't agree that it's done if it's not served, right? So your team will come together and have that discussion and have an agreement. That's the team charter you'll be learning in tomorrow. Tammy will take you guys through that. So that team charter is now where you now agree that at what point do we meet definition of done as a team? So that's where definition of done comes in. So all these things has to be agreed before we say we are moving forward. So like I said, Scrum Ceremony empowers team to collaborate effectively. So the collaboration part comes in when they are able to be transparent with each other, they're able to inspect each other, they're able to adapt to changes, they are collaborating, they are speaking. If something happens to me now, I can quickly stand up and say, okay, I'm in the office and I get a blocker or something, I can't move on. I can quickly say, hi, verbally, or just chat the person that needs to help me. So your team should be in one. You should be able to collaborate and ask each other questions. So reaching out to your stakeholders, collaborating properly and all that has to happen. That's why those ceremonies are fixed. So we can express ourselves, then help set measure for expectation, which is the expectation I mentioned, provides team with a framework of carrying out assigned and well-structured manner. So it's just the same thing as the definition, things to be carried out in a structured manner. So we start and end sprint. In between, we do a review, we do a retrospective, we do different things at the start and the end. What are the ceremonies we're going to do? Steady towards and this results back to the increment that we're going to have at the end of the day. So that's the purpose of Scrum ceremony. Now the ceremonies itself. So in Scrum, please hear me correctly. In Scrum, we have 4 ceremonies that are the major ceremonies. There's a fifth one, which is the refinement, that is not really added as a ceremony, in quotes, but it is a ceremony and an important one. So between me and you, we have 5 ceremonies, right? So this is standard everywhere. We have 5 ceremonies, but officially we have just 4 ceremonies. So I just like to mention that so that people are not dazed when somebody says that and then you argue wrongly. So really, we have 4 ceremonies, but there's a fifth one. So okay, can somebody tell me where I stopped, specifically where you stopped hearing me? I just want to be sure that we're following.
About 5 events in the ceremonies.
All right, thank you. So this is where it starts getting interesting. Please open your mind. So I will take you guys through the journey of how these ceremonies go. So that's why they follow each other like this. There's a reason I placed them like this. So the first ceremony that starts every sprint is called the sprint planning. So we all sit down and we plan a sprint. We sit down, we have a discussion on what we want to do. Now, remember that we have a lot of things in the product backlog. That's why I explained that thing earlier. The product backlog, remember all the things we think we want to do, all the requirements the customer has given us. So that's product backlog item, right? So we do a sprint planning and then we decide the things we want to do. Now, this happens also during this refinement, but I'll try not to confuse you. So let's go gradually. So the sprint planning is like the first ceremony of the sprint officially. When you start a sprint, that's the first ceremony you do. So just like the word is, we sit down, we plan, we move, right? The next thing is the daily stand-up. Now, once we have started the sprint, for every day, we do a daily stand-up, right? Except on the day of the sprint planning or on the last day of the sprint. Those are the 2 days we don't have the daily stand-up. We have daily stand-ups. We have daily stand-ups every day in between the sprint. So if we start sprint today with the sprint planning, right? Tomorrow we'll do a daily stand-up. Next tomorrow we'll do a daily stand-up every day up until the last day of sprint. So the last day of sprint, we will not do the daily stand-up because we also have more than one ceremony on that day, anyways. So there's no need doing a daily stand-up, right? So sprint planning, I'll explain sprint planning, in the coming slides. So for sprint refinement, which is that sprint I explained to you that refinement is not part of the official ceremony, but it's an important ceremony. Now, refinement is done before the start of the sprint. Are you getting the gist? Refinement is done before the start of the sprint. So if we're in a sprint already now, let's say we've started the sprint, we will come and do a refinement of the things we want to do in the next sprint. The things we want to do in the next sprint is what we'll start refining now. We'll start refining them. So we'll go to that product backlog item I explained. We will start sieving through the A, B, C to Z, depending on the priorities from the PO. That's the PO. The PO is like the vision of the organization. So the PO goes to the stakeholder, or we say the customer at this time, to get all the requirements of what the person wants to do at this time and what is of priority. So that's what we will now use to make the decisions on the things we want to do. We'll ensure that everybody has the technical knowledge, that's especially the development team and even the testers, everybody. So we don't call it development team, we just call them developers. I'm just using this to, hit the nail on the head so you understand what I mean. So the development guys, the development team, will make sure they have the technical skills to be able to execute that thing that we have agreed we want to do. So that's where the refinement, even the word refining, when they say you want to refine something, if you have a rough gold, you need to refine it for it to make look beautiful. So you see that product backlog item is where we have all the rough golds, right? So we now pick things from there and refine them. So those things that we've refined is what we'll agree and do a sprint planning on. And then we will now take it into sprint. And the moment we start sprint, those items A, B, and F will now automatically become the sprint backlog. That's that explanation I've explained from the start. You see why it was important for me to explain that so that you understand. So when we get to all this, we'll move fast. So let's go back again. I want us to recap so that everybody gets a good understanding of it. So we said that before a sprint starts, we do refinement. So we will go to our artifacts, which is product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment, right? So this time around, the only artifact we are focused on is the product backlog item that has all the A to Z of all the things we want to do. Like I said, it's a live artifact, so things will keep coming into it, but it doesn't mean that's what we are working on right now. So in this refinement stage, we will now go and select a few things based on what the product owner has come to tell us in the team, that this is the focus of the organization. Because out of those things that are there, the organization might say, don't do this, we don't have funds for it now. Don't do this, it's not of priority now. Don't do this, it's not this. So that's why we always sit down and do a bit of refinement on these things before we take them into sprint. So you see why that refinement is not really like the part of the ceremonies you do during the course of the sprint. It's a standalone, but it is very, very important. Because if you do this properly, you even do a rough estimation. Don't worry, we'll get to understand what estimation and co is. So we'll do a rough estimation. Okay, what effort will it take us to do this particular story? You already have the idea in mind. You guys can even share it amongst yourself so that if the stories are too big, we start breaking them down. So we are getting ready for the start of the new sprint. So that's some of the time we must allocate during a sprint to focus on the next sprint. So that's where refinement is coming from. Now, back to when we now want to start a sprint, we will start with the sprint planning. So that sprint planning is born from the things we have done during the refinement. So we will plan our sprints, and then as we've started the sprint, we've picked the things we want to pick, and those things have been converted to a sprint backlog back to the artifact now. So you remember product backlog, which are the places we picked from, to the sprint backlog. So that sprint backlog is now what we'll be doing this our daily stand-up on. So we are doing daily stand-up because the thing we will achieve after that sprint backlog is a sprint goal, which is equivalent to our increment. So our goal now becomes A, B, and F that we selected from the A to Z. So that becomes our sprint goal. So during that sprint, that goal we want to achieve is what we'll be asking in the questions during the daily stand-up. So every day during daily stand-up, the A, B, and F is what these developers will be discussing. Yes, it might be the Scrum Master facilitating, but sometimes, even in the absence of the Scrum Master, the developers can just go through and speak, right? So the developers are asking themselves the question, or let's even put the Scrum Master in the front. Say, okay, the Scrum Master is the one during the ceremony. So the Scrum Master asks that, oh, okay, so yesterday you said you were going to do this, have you been able to achieve it? Then I'm replying the Scrum Master that, oh yes, I had the call with, that's a separate meeting, like an adult meeting. So yeah, I had a call with Moji, and Moji has explained it to me. So I have clarity. I've been able to impute it, and now it is going fine. So for now, I don't have any blocker. Those are the kind of conversations we'll be having during the daily stand-up. Guess what? Guess where I'm coming to now? Empiricism. Remember that transparency, clarity of what we are doing, and inspecting. You see that she asked me a question of what I was doing yesterday. So that's where the daily stand-up is. So please, if I'm going to be running through the other slides, you see why I'm taking my time to explain this. I want you guys to understand and digest it. So that daily stand-up is just daily check of what we have said we're going to do. And the reason for this daily stand-up is it even gives us accountability. Say, as a Scrum Master, you should have eagle mind, so that you just be noting those things. So if somebody comes to bamboozle you, you will know. So if somebody has told me that, oh, I was working on the footer, I just need to adjust this on the footer, and then tomorrow you tell the person, oh, okay, give us your update. So the person is giving updates, and the person did not speak about that footer. That's where you come in and say, oh, yesterday you said you were going to do this on that footer. Were you able to achieve that? That person might have forgotten. That's why he didn't mention it. But for you to have that clarity, so that person will now say, oh, yeah, that was resolved. That was the first thing I did yesterday, and that's resolved. The person can even show you guys immediately, but we don't like to waste time in stand-up because everything is time boxed. We'll get to the time boxing. Okay, so let's jump to the last two ceremonies. Now, remember we've done refinement. This happened before we started the sprint. At the start of the sprint, we now did the planning. During the course of the sprint, we've been doing daily stand-up every day, every day, every day. Now we are now on the last day of the sprint. So I'm drawing a line here now. This is an invisible line. So on the last day of the sprint, there's something we call sprint review. So we've been doing a lot of work during this time. We've been inspecting ourselves. We've been giving feedback. Everybody's transparent. We're all collaborating. Any blocker, we are removing it. Yada, yada, yada. Now, we now came to give a demo or a feedback or a sprint review or a sprint showcase. They are all one word. So we are giving a review to our stakeholders, right? So we will now come and say, oh, yeah, at the start of the sprint, the team decided to work on A, B, and F. So this is what we've achieved for A. This is this is what we've achieved in B. This is the this is what is achieved in F. For F, we were not able to complete it. However, this we've gotten to this stage of the F. We've drawn the first line of the F. It remains the two dashes of the F. But however, we were impeded because of this, but that has been resolved. So during the start of the next sprint, we should be able to conclude on that and move on from that. Those are the things you'll be saying during the review. And then these stakeholders will be giving you feedback. Oh, this A you did was fantastic. That's really good. Were you able to capture this? Were you able to capture that? Yeah. And somebody is doing the demo for them there and there. Yes, this is the place. We've done that. We've achieved this. We've achieved it. They'll give you a thumbs up. Then B, they do something. We did this. We did that. Oh no, they tell you the curve of that place is not correct. So do you want to amend that? We will note it down. Those are the things we'll go and adapt to. And back to empiricism. You see why I mentioned those things before we start. So sorry I'm dwelling on this page. This will just give us the capture. I can breeze through the rest. So empiricism now comes in. So those feedback that he has given us for the B, he gave us a feedback for the A. He gave us a thumbs up, which is perfect. That's where we want to be. That's what we want to achieve. So the B, he told us the curve in the front of the B, they don't like it. They want us to amend this and that and that and that. We will note all those things down and go back and fix it. So that's the adaptation. It took us a lot of stress to do that B. But guess what? It's fine. They told us to go and make amendments. So it's just a little tweak here and here. Make sure it's aligned. That's fine. Then the F. they're like, oh, okay, this part of the F, this straight line of the F you've done, it is perfect. So we're waiting to see the two dashes that you need to put to make up that F. So that's fine. So that's your sprint review. And you're talking to the right people, you're talking to the stakeholders, you're talking to your customers, you're talking to the subject matter experts, anything, anybody that you want to invite. So anybody that you make a decision to invite, that's fine. Anybody of interest, of power, or anything that you decide that you want to invite as a team to that particular review meeting is who you invite. Now, the last ceremony. So remember that I like doing the recap so that we can see the picture, and I really hope you guys are getting the picture. So the sprint planning, we started with the sprint planning at the start of the sprint. We're doing our daily stand-up. Then remember, it was before the sprint started, we did a refinement so that to make this stage easier because we've refined all those stories. Then we now planned them and then we did the daily stand-up. Now we've given all our stakeholders a review of what they need to know, right? So the review is like we've sat down, we've given them all the feedback. We've completed this and this and this is what we've completed. This is the thing that is still in progress. We have achieved this goal. We have done this. We have done that. We've developed this. We have developed that. We've gotten your feedback. You've noted your feedback. You go and work on that sprint review. Now we will now take a tea break here and go and breathe. What a sprint. We've been doing all this, da, da, da. What a sprint, what a sprint. Okay, let's just go and break, let's relax and come back. So when we come back, we will now sit down as a team and do the retrospective. As the word is, what is retrospective? You need to ask yourself, what do you mean by retrospective? The team come back, they'll come back to reflect on what they have done. That's what retrospective is. We have done all this during the course of the sprint. So here we're coming to chill, gist, and also say the real deal of all the things that made us not finish that F properly, all the things that made us slow, all the things that, oh, I was trying to reach Moji's things. I was not able to reach her. I don't know why most people work virtually. I don't know why she's not responding and everything. I'm not saying you should go to retro to fight though. I'm just giving you an example of the things you need to discuss in the retro. Her collaboration was very poor this particular sprint because I found it very difficult to meet up with the PO or something which shouldn't be so ideally in a team. You should be able to collaborate well. But sometimes your external stakeholders, when I mean external, and I don't mean outside the organization, within your organization, but they're external to your team, right? So those external stakeholders, oh, I was trying to meet him to, just review a particular something or give me clarity, but it took a while. He kept missing. He went on 2 days holiday, which I wasn't aware of up until I tried to reach him. Anything that stalled, you explain all those things in retro. Is in that same retro you people will still just and say, oh, some funny things. You'll see a demo of it today, right? How all these things go, why they're important. So it's in that retrospective that you will reflect on what has happened, what went well during the course of our sprint. I'm just going to use the normal, sentences that we use in retro, right? What went well during the course of these last 2 weeks? What didn't go well during the course of these last 2 weeks? Is there anything we need to adapt to? Is there any changes we need to do? Is there anything improvements we need to do? Those are the things you'll be discussing. And even during that improvement, we can assign that improvement to somebody to follow up within the team or anything. We will get to understand it on the go. So that's the end of my story for Scrum ceremonies, for you to just picture it in your mind so that when they are doing their demo tonight, you will understand what they are doing. That's why I'm taking my time to break it down. So if somebody understands me, I'm happy for anybody to unmute to to clarify that it is well grabbed, right? This is not, anybody just do you understand the drama? This is my own first role play on this. Are we clear on the drama on this? This is a training, so I'm happy to yeah.
I got a
Yeah,
question.
it's clear. It's clear though.
Okay, so that's fine. So we're now going to just run through the ceremonies so that we can know exactly
Allow me, there's a question in the chat.
what's the question. I was hoping to take all the questions at the end. Okay, please,
Yeah.
can you
No, I
decide to
thought
now?
we were asking them if they had question.
No, not question. Just to be
Okay.
sure that they get the gist. So, but
Okay.
it's fine. I'll just take only this one. Then we'll take all the questions at the end, right? My understanding of sprint refinement is that when the backlog is too big to be delivered during the sprint cycle, So it is taken into a refinement session to break it down to smaller bits. One is part of it, but it's not the real. I don't know how to explain it. It's part of it, but it's not the real reason for a refinement. So we have a lot of stories seated in the backlog. Forget that we are even in a sprint. We take out time during the course of a sprint to go back and sit down and look at our backlog. That's what I was trying to say, that I know a lot of people have one or two understanding of things. Just kind of drop it so that you don't confuse yourself. So when you are in the act, you get to now understand the real reason for that refinement, right? I'm happy to see this, that at least somebody even has an idea of what's going on. Okay, so the thing is, we have sat down, we're already doing a sprint. Now, in preparation for the upcoming sprint, let us sit down and go into that product backlog item and pick out some stories that will be refined, and we will get it ready for the sprint planning. So for us to do that, we also need to reach the PO. The PO will tell us the next set of priorities that are coming in, right? Yes, do this, do this, do this. This is a must have. This is a this, this is a this. No, drop this one. We're not doing this one now. Okay, the developers will also agree that they are doables. Doable rather. They are able to fix this. They are able to do that. They are able to that. So that's the developers part in it. So they will now all sit down and now chew it together. Even the testers will say, is this thing testable? This thing that they are trying to do, will it be testable by the time they are done? You are just putting your heads together to be sure, because you are doing that ahead of this sprint planning. So when we want to start the next sprint, we would have put all these stories in. I don't want to start telling you people all the columns, right? But let's just say we would have put it in approved column. You will get to understand when the demo is going to go on shortly. We would have put all these things in approved column, right? So it starts with that PBI. Then the BAs, they start writing the stories. Everybody agrees on it. There's a refinement going on. The PO gives its thumbs up that yes, it is now okay. The PO will now approve it, and it now sits on the approved column. So that is what we are. That is refinement. So the part you're now talking about is now, yeah. That's the most code I'm talking about. Yeah. So the part that you are referring to now, saying that when it's too big, that's the part I was explaining, that you will even estimate it roughly, because it's during sprint planning you do your full correct estimation. You will see them do it today. But however, you will just estimate it roughly, like a rough guess of estimation. Estimation is the effort it takes you to do something, and that effort encompasses your risk, it encompasses complexity, your technicality of how to do something. So if you tell me to do something engineering right now, I don't know how to do engineering. But if you tell me to do something banking that I'm used to, I can do a banking work faster. Engineering, to take me forever, because I'll need to do a spike continuously. Spike is like learning something new, right? I'll keep learning to be able to even do the thing. So you cannot compare somebody that has been doing the engineering work since 1920 and me that I don't know anything in the engineering. So all these things is the effort it will take me to do that particular thing. So we will now already think and estimate in our head. We'll say, oh no, this thing is too big. Let's break it down. That's all the breaking down we're doing ahead of the sprint planning. So let's go so that we don't deviate too much. Okay. So I'm happy it's clear. So let's go gradually. And now we're going to be flipping. So all the ceremonies must be time boxed. I need to go back a step. Apologies. So in the ceremonies, before I leave this, I'll do this in 1 minute. All the participants of the ceremonies are all the people I told you that are the roles in Scrum. We have 3 roles in Scrum: PO, Scrum Master, and developers. They are the participants in all the ceremonies, right? They are the participants in all the ceremony, except for the sprint review, where we invite our stakeholders, because they are the ones that will give us that feedback. So now also note that in any of these other um, events, if I want to invite somebody and the team agrees on it, we can invite them. But it's really not their business, because this is where we do our dirty talk and explanations of how we want to do something, you understand? So we don't invite third party to your team to start listening in on all your team breakdown and everything. But if need be, you can invite anybody, but that's just by the way. People usually don't, anyways. But for the sprint review, you must invite your stakeholders. Do you want to review something within yourself? Who will give you the feedback? So you need to invite the stakeholders. That's that. Now, for the duration, ideally, people say 4 hours within a 2-week sprint, but the truth is, people usually use just 2 hours or less, right? For daily stand-up, it is 15 minutes. Please do not exceed 15 minutes. Anything that is exceeding 15 minutes, please put it in the parking lot. Parking lot is a separate meeting that you just create, like an ad hoc meeting, where if people want to deep dive into what they want to say in the daily stand-up, and this 15 minutes will not be able to cater for that discussion, they can move it to the parking lot so that when people that have done their own reports and they are good to go want to jump out, they can just jump out of the call, right? And then the people that want to stay to be doing that talk or dissecting things, they just want to have a separate ad hoc meeting. They can do that after these 15 minutes. But as a Scrum Master, always try to make sure that you walk through these 15 minutes. And as a developer, for you guys to, when you're giving your reports, just note that you are a gazillion in your team. Why do you, only you people are sharing 15 minutes. You insist on the developer, they want to talk for 10 minutes out of the 15 minutes. That is no team spirit from that person. You know it's 15 minutes. You know that we are 10 in a team, or you know that we are 5 in a team, or whatever it is. Just split it straight in your head that, oh, okay, I know that I need not to talk more than a minute. If we're like 7 in my team, oh, I know not to talk more than 2 minutes, right? So I'm just going, giving my updates. This is this. Sometimes your update can even be a 20 seconds update. Oh, for me, yeah, I've been able to achieve this. You say that particular thing you want to achieve, and for now, no blockers. And you've moved on. You don't always need to. Some people like to hear themselves talk. So they take the whole. So it's very important to note this duration. Your sprint refinement is 2 hours during the course of a 2-week sprint. Your review is 2 hours during the course of a 2-week sprint. Please note that all this timing, it can be lesser, right? So even if you do your review in 1.5 hours, nobody's going to shoot you. If you do a refinement in 1.5 hours, nobody's going to shoot you, right? Retrospective is 1.5 hours. So the retrospective is always very fun. You start, for me, let me give an example of my team. We use the first half an hour for games. That's, we just do an icebreaker for like 5 minutes. And then the remaining 25 minutes, we'll play a game. We'll just do something silly, and then after that, the remaining 1 hour, we'll now use it to, we use the 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes after that 30 minutes. We use the first 10 minutes to populate the board. Everybody will put in their tickets on the board. We usually use a lucid board. So everybody will put in their ticket. That's the ticket to contain, oh, less collaboration. Oh, I found it hard using Abacus. I found it that let me use something that that is relatable. I was not able to log in to Zoom for my Teams was having something. My video was not working properly. Those are the things that you can say, okay, maybe a downer during the course of the sprint. Anything you want to put there. Then the last 50 minutes, that's 50, we'll now use it to break down everything that we want to do, voting in between. Sometimes we don't vote self, we just do thumbs up. So it depends. Anything that works for your team. So that's all for the ceremonies. Now let's go gradually. So all ceremonies, like I said, I have 10 minutes to the end of this call, so I will be zooming fast. Please bear with me. You cannot start a screen share. All right. So I already mentioned earlier that all ceremonies must be time boxed, right? All ceremonies, what the time box is that timing I'm giving you guys just in the previous slide. All ceremony must be purpose driven. There's a reason we always say this purpose driven. Don't just do a ceremony for doing sake. Some people do ceremony for doing sake. If you do it for doing sake, you will lose your team during the course of that. They will not find value in what you're doing, right? So make sure the ceremony is tailored towards something important. And what is that driven thing? Your sprint goal, right? So make sure that that ceremony is tailored towards how we want to achieve that sprint goal. All ceremony must have acceptance of the team. Your team must welcome that ceremony. So that's why we start breaking the ice from the start. Your team must welcome that ceremony in the sense that if they find value in it, it's properly time boxed. So I've zeroed my mind. I'm going into this meeting for 15 minutes, and then you use 40 minutes today. Okay, I'll test it. Tomorrow you use 35 minutes. Next tomorrow you use 42 minutes. Next tomorrow you use 25 minutes. I will just know that this one is a time waster. I will know that I will not come in. So try not to do that to yourself. All these things are all interrelated. So for the team to have acceptance, they must be able to find value for why we're doing it. And they must know that, okay, 2 hours is 2 hours. Then 15 minutes is 15 minutes. Even if you're not going to exceed maybe by 5 minutes or something, oh, apologies, guys, we're exceeding by 5 minutes. Um, 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 you just make sure that that apology is there and they can see the reason why we are exceeding that 5 minutes. Even when it's like 5 minutes to 5 minutes to the end of the call, that you see that, there's no how we can escape this thing. We must exceed. I'll start apologizing ahead. You understand? That's how you should carry your team. So sorry, this particular side is tailored a bit towards the SMs, right? But it doesn't matter. Sometimes, like I told you, SMs don't even facilitate meetings. Sometimes it just be the developers, facilitating their code. So everybody should have this facilitation skill of making sure that things are properly time boxed, purpose driven, and have acceptance, right? Another thing is you must prepare for this. So out of familiarity, I do daily stand up every day, every day, every day. So out of familiarity, I'm not ready for the daily stand up. Before you know, your team will not accept it again. It will lose value. You will just be, there will be no use. So always make sure that you've prepared for that meeting. Make sure that you, like all those notes that you jotted the day before, have it by your side. Make sure you've checked the board. So you check your dashboard, you check your project board itself. Be sure that everybody's okay, moving their stories accordingly. For me, if I check those boards and I see that people have not moved their stories according to what they said, I can send a simple chat and say, hi everyone, please let's ensure we move our tickets to the right column. It serves as a reminder. If you sit down and go back to look at the board, under 2 minutes, you will see like 5 tickets have moved. It's normal for you to always remind your team to do this. It puts that ginger within the team when you send reminders sometimes. And with time they get used to it. You don't even need to holler anymore. They get used to it. So those are some of the important things. You always be prepared before every meeting. Don't just start the meeting. Make sure you have, even before this meeting, I've looked through my slides. Am I sure nothing is blocking it? Am I sure this one? I already know that if I talk on this one, I'm going to be breaking so much that it will be of no value. You must always prepare for it. There's no tutor that comes on this call without preparing for it, their meetings. It's not because they've not done it more than once, but there's no over familiarity when it comes to it's easy to have over familiarity, but don't do that to yourself. Always be battle ready. And the last thing is to ensure that every meeting you do is valuable. So let's go. So sprint planning, I've explained sprint planning, that is the first event of the sprint, is where the team determines the product backlog items that will be worked on during that sprint, the initial plan for it and the product items here. So the importance of this is to ensure that we reduce risks of failure. So that's very, very, very key. If you don't plan well, remember that quote that they say, he who plans to fail. Maybe he who does not plan plans to fail, He who fails to plan plans to fail, yeah. So that's the particular word, So always make sure that you don't underestimate your planning meeting. So you plan properly so that you can go have a smooth um, sprint, understanding the scope of work. That's why we do that. So daily stand up. Daily stand up is done 15 minutes every day. Now, these things are very important when it comes to daily stand up. You see this word, same place, same time. The reason for this is because when somebody has turned something to an habit, it helps a lot. So if you have arranged with your team, all of you agreed. It's not you that set the time, right? The team agrees that, because most times there's no team you have now that will not have teams in India or Germany or somewhere, right? So make sure everybody has agreed, depending on the time zone. Let's have this meeting by 9 to 9:15 in the morning UK time. That means it might be 2 p.m. in India, right? If you go and have that meeting by 8 a.m., they might be having lunch by 1 p.m., which is wrong. So you need to make sure that it's a timing that is suitable for everybody. So you need to make sure it's a particular timing. And now, this same place, same time is usually, if you're meeting physically, for example, use the same meeting room. So it's not like somebody will be looking for, is it room 101 we're using today? Okay, tomorrow are we using room 106? Just make sure you have a fixed time. So you create a recurring meeting that every time 105. But if there will be a reason why we'll be using 101 today, because of one reason or the other, give your team a heads up. Guys, apologies, 105 is not available today, so we're going to be using 101. That's if you're there physically. But now, if you're there virtually, time is time. Let's do it always 9 o'clock, because if you do 8:20 or something, people will be at lunch. So you'll be clashing towards people's time. The Germany guy will not be happy. The Indian guy will not be happy. Always pick a time that is suitable. And also for memory's sake. So naturally with me now, I know that whether I want to or yes, by 8 o'clock, something must happen in Blue Sky. So I have geared myself towards it. In fact, if I see 7:52, I'm like, oh, is there a meeting today? That's the first thing I ask myself. There might be no meeting, but a natural me already knows that by 8 something is starting. So that's where you want to put the mindset of your team. Now let me first be the first to apologize. I have a feeling I'm going to exceed by. I have a feeling we'll be exceeding by another 5 minutes, so apologies ahead. Okay, so that's that. Same place, same time, facilitated by the Scrum Master. And the usual question is, what did you do today? What did you do yesterday? Rather, what did you do today? Do you have any impediments? That's the regular answer. But I always tell people that if you ask me this word every day, I will not even talk to you again. I will not like you because you will bore me. So always find a way to spice things up. It's not every time you say, what did you do yesterday? I use different words for my team. So I can start with maybe, okay, let me look at the participants. So let's start. So maybe I want to talk to my madam Abimbola. Maybe I want to ask her something now. Say, oh, hi Abimbola, do you want to give us an update of where you are, just something. So she's happy to share with me. They know in the team already that when I say updates, you're just telling me what you need to do. So when I get to Adaolisa's store and I can tell Adaolisa, instead of me to say, Adaolisa, any update from your end or something, I'll rather do Adaolisa. I'll rather say, oh, hi Adaolisa, were you able to have the call with, who's the next person on the queue? With Juliet. Let's speak Juliet. Hi Ada, were you able to have a call with Juliet yesterday? And then Ada will be like, oh yeah, we're able to have the call. We had clarity on this. We had we're able to move it. We're able to do this, And then I get to Ade. When I get to Ade, I'll be like, Ade, have you been any impediment from your end? Are you good? Ade will say, oh no, no impediment from my end. I was able to achieve this. I'm starting with different sentences from there. I'm not going one after the other. Abimbola, what did you do yesterday? Abimbola will say, Abimbola, what did you do today? Abimbola, please don't bore your team. Once you bore your team, you lose them. So that's the part of making sure the team gets value for what they're doing. So that's that. So facilitated. Okay, so that's it. For daily stand-up, it's a brief meeting, like I said, and guess why they call it daily stand-up? Just guess, someone guess, someone guess, someone guess. Okay, just because of time, I'll just go. So it's daily stand-up because ideally, even before COVID, people stand up to do this meeting. They don't sit down to do the meeting. Because if you sit down to do a meeting, there's tendency you exceed this 15 minutes. So, most companies have cubicles here and here and all that. So once it's time for daily stand-up, everybody gets on their feet. They can either walk to an area like a board, they will have a board and some stickers or something on it, or they can even stand up there and there on their decks and have a conversation because most times teams stay around each other. They don't really stay far from each other. But if you have one or two people that are staying far, they'll just walk towards where the most people are standing, right? And just have that same conversation. So it's a stand-up meeting. They call it daily stand-up because they stand up to do the meeting. But since COVID, that everybody does it from home and different things, that's where the difference is. But daily stand-up was called daily stand-up because it's supposed to be a short meeting, right? So it's a brief meeting designed to let team plan their work, quick exchange of vital information. They also identify obstacles that can impact their work. So that's where we say, is there any impediment? Impediment is obstacle. Like, okay, I'm not able to do this because my team has crashed, or my video is no more working, or the version of my video has issue. So you as a Scrum Master, you are not supposed to really solve the issue, but you will find a way to make sure the team removes that impediment. So what's the way forward? You can just nudge the person to probably make a request in IT to do this, or so just make sure that impediment is removed. You might not be the one resolving it, but just make sure you get your team towards removing it. And for me, I always tell my team, let's say we just finished having the stand-up now, and something happens in 10 minutes time. Some people, if they're not good collaborators within their team, they will wait till the next stand up before they tell you that something crashed 10 minutes after. Okay, we said we do the meeting from 9 to 9:15. So by 9:25, something happened. Some people will wait till the next day to tell you something happened to them. Make sure your team is not in that kind of category. Make sure you are collaborating within your team. One of you are talking, you're expressing yourselves. So there and there, if something happens, that person can stand up within his desk or just give a chat or something that, oh hi, or just walk up to the person to help you. Oh, hi, this. You get it resolved, you move on, work is going. So make sure you get to your team to that stage. Then let's quickly go. Okay. All the attendees of the Scrum team. Okay, we've already said that importance of daily stand-up. I'm going to run through this just to inspect our work. Remember, I've told you guys about the transparency, collaboration, share your progress, peer accountability. So you can imagine if Wumi comes and says that I want to do this today. Tomorrow, they ask me that, have I done this? And I say, oh, I haven't done it because of this, but I'm going to do it today. That's fine, right? Then we come the third day, they say, have you done this? I say, I've not done this, By the time you do it, people will be looking at this one that who is this one that has refused to move forward. So it puts you in that accountability stage naturally that no, I need to, move ahead. It helps just your morale and just your own sense of reasoning that I've been reporting this, so I need to. So naturally you always want to move forward within the team. So it's really very good. It helps the team self-organize. So everybody, you see, when it comes to Scrum, nobody manages the other. Please note that everybody is equal in Scrum. Guys, please, this is one of the major things you need to know. Everybody is equal in Scrum. You're equal to your PO, you're equal to your Scrum Masters, BAs, everybody's equal. But guess what? You can't be rude to anybody. You can't talk down on anybody. Give everybody utmost respect. If you respect them, they respect you back. So that is one of the big um feedback, or how will I know? I won't use the word feedback. That's one of the important things within Scrum, to know that everybody was employed because they have the technical skills to be able to organize themselves. So, but for that organization, we will now grow with it. It's not like you guys know how to organize yourself at once. Remember, I told you that it gets to a time that Scrum Masters, yes, you might be facilitating a call, but after a while, you will get to the stage that you don't need to facilitate again. Your developers can facilitate. You can just steer things right, because you have brought your team to that stage to be able to self-organize themselves. So guess what? On the day that Olawumi goes on vacation, nobody will even, be affected because we know what to do as developers. We know how to go about these things. That's why all these things are important. I need to keep running. So sprint review, I've explained sprint review is meeting organized at the end of the sprint. That's the first meeting on the last day of sprint, just for constructive feedback from our stakeholders of what we've done during the course of the sprint. So it is reviewed and then we go back and adapt to it. So that's what sprint review is all about. The importance is just to provide status updates and then to ensure that all the products fit the user's needs. You remember I told you that somebody said they wanted sky blue, it was royal blue, he wanted at the end of the day. Just make sure that the customer is happy. That's the English here. Fit user needs. The user is happy with it, it fits what they need, and all. That's what review is about, and helps to inspect. To remember empiricism again, we're back to inspection. That's why I say you cannot live without transparency, inspection, and adaptability when it comes to all the ceremonies. That's what it's for. Now, retrospective, guess what? Remember, I told you it's the fun time. So, this is an example of a retro board. This is from Lucid, for example. So, this is hot air balloon. That's what they call this particular retro. So, this is the things that are pulling us up, the things that are dragging us down, the things that are sun and bright in our life, the thunderstorms that we have. That's what all these have. I will probably show you guys a more clearer example of this, but this is a thunderstorm. So if you look at the things that are pulling us down, for example, you see lack of cohesion, communication gap, you see that there are things pulling us down. Now see sunshines, defined outline, we had a early start on the project, document code was in place, like that. So everybody puts in their ticket. This is people putting in their ticket. I like to color code the ticket. So every blue ticket, I'll know that it's Moji that put all these blue tickets. Every pink ticket, I'll know that it's Abimbola that has all the pink tickets. All the amber ones, sorry, all the what's this color? Help me. All these colors, this yellowish one, let's just leave it as yellow, are the ones from somebody else. So
Orange.
orange, thank you. I don't know why I wasn't seeing orange. So, but that's it. So you color code it just to make it easier. So for me, my team now, this color code now, this same blue ticket now, I write Abibola in it. The next one, I write somebody's name in it like that, so that everybody knows exactly who is who. So once I see an orange ticket, immediately I know that this is Muji. It's Muji that wrote this one now. So it's fine. You should be transparent enough to be able to speak within your team. So if you is a meeting held at the end of each sprint, where the team reflects on the past sprint and improve on their processes. So it's a very, very important ceremony. The ceremony helps to find out ways to improve the team and ways to make things better. And then usually it starts with an icebreaker, and then you play games, and then you now do this main one. This is your main course of event. Oh. So some people get carried away and use 1 hour for games. Don't do that. Just use a small allocated time for games. This is the main event where you guys tell yourselves the truth, right? You tell yourself the truth. Don't be harsh on anybody. Always remain professional. Before you speak, think twice before you speak. So you don't, it doesn't mean you will be uptight. You should be free in your team, but don't say things that will be offensive. Okay, let's go. It's done within 1.5 to 2 hours during the course of every 2 week sprint. So the importance is, just like I said, for inspecting ourselves. We plan for the next sprint by knowing what went well in this one and what didn't go well, so we can plan better for the future. Opportunity to evaluate our work, increase quality, allows team members. So I will just skip this. I will skip the retro exercises. This is an icebreaker. Somebody says, "Oh, if you have $1 million, what are you going to do with it?" The first time I asked my team this, I did not know they were thieves. In fact, all the things they said they wanted to do about this, I just kept cracking on. Then, for example, I also picked names from those of us that I remember their names yesterday. So I use this to probably maybe want to play a game. I want to call the first person to play the game. I'll just roll this picker wheel. So I put Shedrack, Temi's name, I put Remy, I put Onome's name. Those are the names that came to me last night when I was just preparing for this. So we just roll these dice. If I click on it, it will roll and then it will now pop up the person's name. Don't worry, I'll show you guys a demo of it maybe some other time, maybe not now. It will pop up the person's name and then all of us will say, it's Shedrack. Oh yeah, Shedrack, answer. Like that. Just that first 30 minutes, because you need to come back and relax. Then guess what? It's not every time you do your retro in the office. Sometimes you can just use it as a team bonding activity and do it outside of the office. But let me give an example. This last week Thursday, we did a potluck and then we did some games, right? And guess what? We did everything in the office. So we worked from morning to midday, and then the potluck is just bringing food. But we all agreed that we should bring food from our culture. So all the Indians, they brought all the biryanis in this life and put all the pepper in the world they need. Olawumi brought jollof rice and I made one sauce like that. Until tomorrow, they are chasing me for the recipe of the jollof rice. But my problem is I'm telling them that they cannot make it. There's a way that we need to make it smoky and everything. I can't be describing that one in this thing, but I've tried to explain to them. So people brought Japanese meal, different things. It was really fun. We used 1 hour for that. Then after the 1 hour, we now went to play games. So that day, we just really did not feel like doing, the ideal retro. We did the retro, right? But we said we're not going to play games or anything, right? That we'll just use this potluck and everything to do. Our sprint ends on Thursdays, by the way. So that's why we did it on that Thursday. So we did a bit of retro just to discuss the main things. Then we just went to Gallivant till the end of the day. So we do that. Some people go out to have fish. Sometimes we've had meals at the seaside. Sometimes we went to row boats. We'll now pick three of us. We'll pick ballot. Three will be in the boat. We did rowing of boats. So we'll go to Leamington to do bro boat. Anything you want to do within your team, as long as you guys enjoy it, then guess what? The Indian guys will not be able to do the same. So we'll find some other games that we can play online and then they'll join in. So we did one that if I draw a picture, it will tell the person, and I'll name the picture, it will tell the person to draw that thing. It comes out very funny. If I explain this thing, maybe one day we'll do one silly retro activity that you guys will be like, oh my God, people will just be screaming. But retro is always very fun. Sometimes we say, pick, what they call this one now? That just pick the similarities between the two pictures and all that, and then we are timing the person. It's 45 seconds. You have 10, 9, 8. I have a timer that comes up on the screen. I'll do that, and then it drops down. Once it's done, we'll say, okay, how many did you get? 10. The next person will do their own. Maybe somebody else will get 15. We have different ones. We have tongue twisters, red lorry, yellow lorry. Anything you want to do for your sprint retro, you can do your sprint retro. This is the rising hair I was talking about. So now let me go back. So you remember that the sunshine, you see the thunderstorm, you see the sandbags like that. Any questions? Recognition is one of the things I like the most. So during the course of sprint, Shedrack helped me clarify the Visio issue I was having. I remember I chatted him and we collaborated. So I put a recognition here for Shedrack. Oh, Onome was fantastic on this. Thank you, Wumi, for showing us the sprint ceremonies. Thank you, this one. Anything you want here, and we'll read through it. It's always fun. It improves the morals of the people within the team that, oh, somebody saw me. Somebody can say thank you. You understand? So it's always important. There are different styles. So let me just keep going. The day I did this, I keep saying it. The day I did this, I never knew that I like to look for trouble. Apologies about my background noise. I didn't know that I was a troublemaker until I shared this. They nearly beat themselves in my team. Who did this? Ola, who told you that we are glad with Chelsea? Who told everybody was just fighting? Different things, but it was fun. So we used 10 minutes to even agree on which team to use. So this is an example of what I'm saying. Can you see that Abimbola is orange ticket? So any orange ticket here, I know that is Abimbola. Moji, any amber one, I know that is a bolu like that. So we just do that. Then we take an action plan at the end of the day, anything just to make your team happy. I just like to show this example so that we have an idea, but we'll show you how we also do it on Azure board. We'll show you in this tonight's demo. I need to finish up because all the people for the demo are already on the call. Apologies, in 3 minutes I'll be done. So refinements now. Okay, I was just going to show some of the tools we use for it. So we use Azure DevOps for it, which is the one we'll show you tonight. The ones I've been showing you now are Lucid Spark. A previous one there was Mural. Some people even use Mentimeter for it. Just tools for retrospective. There's Easy Retro, different types. Just enjoy yourself. Make researches, guys. I want to see differences in what you're doing. Make researches. Enjoy yourself during the course of this your 3 months program. If you're not clear, ask any of your mentors. They will guide you, but don't be too restrictive. Don't be too, flex your muscle, enjoy yourselves, and enjoy all the ceremonies. And then lastly, for refinement, I've already explained to you guys that the team looks at the product backlog and decides whether they want to decomposition it further. That's the part that the person on the chat asked the question. So we decide if we want to break it down more or want to do anything, then we'll break it down. We can do a bit of estimation in it. Then we continue to find the good collection of user stories from the product backlog. The PO will be the one pointing us the direction to. Then the PO prioritizes the story, right? And then the team will now estimate, and we'll also do severity. Severity is okay. How important is this story? It's almost like priority too, but how important, how severe it is. Is this something that if we don't do it today, trumpet will sound, that kind of thing. So we make that clear. Then I already explained to you DOR and DOD. I know I didn't mention acceptance criteria earlier, but acceptance criteria too is just part of it. You can use it as your assignment to look at acceptance criteria, DOR, DOD, so you have clarity as to these things. Let's go. Importance of refinement to keep the backlog up to date, the PPI is prepared, like that. Eliminates backlog chaos, keep the team updated and all that. That's why we do that. Remember I told you at the beginning about invest criteria. This is definition of ready, right? Any story that doesn't meet this invest criteria should not be carried into sprint, right? It should not even get to that approved column. Every story must be a standalone. That's this independent part like that. Please, this is your second assignment. Go through the DOR, DOD, acceptance criteria, and invest criteria, right? Okay, let's go. And then I like showing this. This is Scrum at a glance. You see all those talk I've been saying since morning. This is it as a glance. You remember our product backlog item? We have number 1 to 8. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what our product backlog item is, right? So now we now start planning. The team decides that we want to select some of these 8, right? So we now selected 1, 2, and 3. And then this is now our sprint backlog. We now start sprint. We decided to do 1 to 4 week sprint. So let's say we did a 2-week sprint. So we start doing this sprint. We start doing this sprint, right? We start doing this sprint. Then during this sprint, we are doing the stand-up. We are doing the stand-up. Remember that this is our sort of our refinement. This is our sprint planning. This is our daily stand-up. You see that we've done 3 ceremonies already. These are our daily stand-up. When we now finish our daily stand-up, we'll now review it. These are 4th ceremony. So this is 3rd ceremony, 4th ceremony, and then these are 5th ceremony, which is our retrospective. But in all of it, this is what we wanted to achieve. This is our increments. This finished work is our increment. So all the talk I'm talking, now even all these pictures, they mean something. Usually in a team, we'll tell you the composition of what a real team should look like, right? So usually in a team, you have plenty execs, right? Let me go back. We have plenty executives, right? And that the executive now gives this guy, the PO, all the things they want to do, right? So the PO accepts it and now brings to the team and tells the team this is what we want to do. The Scrum Master is steering everything. So this is every of the developers that were working. This is what we achieved as a team, right? So the PO again comes here and is the forefront of that review meeting. The PO is always the forefront of the review meeting. The developers will be showcasing, everybody will be showcasing, but the PO is always, the forefront of the meeting, right? So let's go. And I always like to ask what is the best Scrum ceremonies. We always use like 5 minutes for this session, but apologies, guys, we're not able to do that today. But usually when we ask what's the best ceremony, I always tell people pick anyone you like, any of the 5, but give us the reasons, right? Some people will tell you they like retrospective because you can reflect on what you have done, and you can always make changes, improve on yourself. Some people will tell you that, oh, if you don't plan right, and all that, but there's always a right answer to this, right? So the reason we ask this is it comes out a lot during the your interview also. So we tell people to tend to go in a way that you try to explain yourself that let me see the term. No, I can't take it, sorry. So we always like to use a better explanation of saying that guess what? All the ceremonies are the best because it's like we always use this example. So I think this example for Tolu from Tolu and Mojio. Like if you have a table with 4 legs and you remove one leg, right? So we have 4 ceremonies. Let's say the base of that ceremony, the base of the stool, let's say it's the refinement. So let's leave the other 4 ceremonies as the leg. So you remove one leg of the table, right? Once you remove that one leg, 3 legs can stand. Think of it, 3 legs of a table can stand. But let somebody just sit down at that edge, it will collapse, right? So what's the use? So all these Scrum ceremonies are very, very important. However, you can now pick your favorite. So I'll now go and say, however, I think sprint planning, can be this, because of this reason, that reason, that reason. But don't always go in front of your interview and say, oh, the best Scrum ceremony is sprint planning. No. Always let them know that this best Scrum ceremony, there's no best because everything is really good. Everything is important. There's very, very solid reasons why we do all the ceremonies. However, if just for the sake of answering that question, I will go for this for so reason. But anyone you pick is fine as long as you can give good justification for it. All right. So I guess that's it. And then thank you. So we will take 1 minute break only, and then we'll transition to the next. Which is the demo. So in the next 1 hour, we'll be doing demo. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Any questions before we go? Any questions? Any questions? Juliet, over to you. I'm seeing so. Oh, okay. Somebody was testing about the Manchester.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, Miracle's hand is up. Miracle, my hand. You have a question, Miracle?
Yeah, I just want to be clear for the sprint. My question, the BAs and the Q, where do they fall into? Is it the developers or
The what
doing
and the queue? Okay, the developers. The
the
composition of the
BAs?
developers.
Okay, okay, okay.
The
No problem.
developer, is that what you're asking? I'm not getting your question.
I said the BAs and the QAs, do they fall
So they
under
all
the
fall under development, right? So what you need to understand about developers is those that are executing that work to make that product develop, right? So we are trying to develop a particular product. So the BAs are writing on that product, right? And then the truth is a BA's roles and a PO's role is very similar. So I will even more tilt a BA towards a PO, right? But for the QAs, somebody has developed something. I need to test that thing that he has developed to make sure that it is good enough and it is fit for use by the user. You remember that clause earlier? It is fit
Yeah.
for use by the user. So people like the developers and developer testers, they are all developers, right? Before we used to call them development team, but in the latest Scrum guide is developers that I was referred to. Now, people like the cyber, the DA guys, the APM will be asking that where do they fall? We've always said for ADM, you work with the Scrum team. You don't work in the Scrum team. With, not in. Now, for the DAs and co, it depends on the project. There are some projects that we will need a DA. There are some projects we will need designers, maybe UI UX designers. Some projects will need only front developers or something. Some projects you need front end, back end, full stack, so it depends on the project. Some projects you need DevOps engineer, you need this one, you need that one. So project determines the composition of your team. So those are part of the questions you asked during your interview. When they ask you any questions from you can ask, oh, what's the composition of the team like? So you even have an idea of the people you're working with. So it depends on the team. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Thank
Adolisa, Ada.
Yes, I can. Thank you. Okay, so my question is, I think I got lost somewhere.
Okay.
The fifth Scrum ceremony, is
Yeah.
that a sprint refinement?
Retrospective.
Oh, retrospective.
Okay, do you mean standalone? That's on my slides, it was the retrospective. But the
You know,
middle refinement is that fifth one I said is not really part of it, but it's part of it, right? Is that what you're saying?
yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
Refinement is the refinement.
Refinement. Okay. All right. Thank
Yes. Because that refinement, remember, is done before the sprint starts.
Yes, you said so.
So that's where it's excluded from. It's just like we just need that refinement to prep ourselves towards the start of the sprint, and it's always very helpful. It makes the team plan right. It's not like on that day of the planning we start saying, this story is too big, oh, let's break it. Oh, this story is not doable. Oh, how do we start sprint? But if you've done all those refinement and done the dirty job, just like the word refinement, rough gold, you want to smoothen it, right? So if you've done all the smoothing, by the time you get to the planning, you're just working, you're just going straight. Yeah. All right. Thank you. We'll take Rachel as the last question so that we can quickly start. Really, time is of essence. So, Rachel.
Okay, thank you so much. Allow me just a quick one. And I'm very new to this, so I just wanted to ask, what kind of projects do you execute? Because when we talk about this project, I always think big. I always think of maybe developing a software or something like that.
Yeah,
So what kind
that's
of
what you're doing.
project?
That's what you'll be doing.
So how
So it
possible do
depends.
you do that within 4
So they
weeks?
are
You
okay.
mentioned.
So no, the thing is, I will start this way because of that your last phrase. So most times when somebody tells you to do a project for them, right? The project can be a 3 months project, it can be a 1 year project, it can be a 6 months project. But however, because we do things iteratively in Scrum, then we do it every 2 weeks and be adding those increments together to make it a whole, right? So we'll just do a pinch of it in sprint A, we'll put it aside. In sprint two, rather, we'll do another pinch of it. We'll add what we did in sprint one with the one we've gotten in sprint two, it makes it bigger. We go to sprint three, we work on it again. Now back to your earlier question of what type of project, it depends, right? Ranging from construction projects to creating a website to creating a system, anything. They are any project. Some projects can be like you just want to create a website for a particular company to deliver some products, right? So, for example, somebody created Amazon app. That's a project. Now, it's not the content of the thing they're selling, but the application to be able to, I'm looking for a socks and a socks pops out. Somebody created that thing. That is what you're going to learn how to create, right? So just anything ranging, anything is a project, right? Anything that has a specific time. If you even check the definition of project is anything that has that specific timing. So at the start, you know that it's a 6 month project, but we want to do it iteratively. Okay, so we do sprint one to D, like that. Anything is a project, anything. All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So now I'm going to pass the baton to Moji and our gang, Moji and the gang.